Do you believe a simple backyard wedding could stir an entire community's emotions and even make the evening news? I didn't either, until it happened, in my own life. I'm Adelaide, and I was called the shame of the family by my own mother just because I dared to have a backyard wedding. No designer dress, no fancy venue, no sparkling lineup of bridesmaids. My mother refused to come. My sister, Amalinda, who once had a grand castle wedding, just shook her head in pity. But I didn't need them. With my amazing husband, Bernice, and my best friend Amity, we put together a wedding lit with string lights, wildflowers, and unwavering determination. No one thought it would work. But then, a short video of the ceremony was shared, and within days, social media exploded. The press called it the most beautiful wedding of the summer. And my mother. She was so shocked she called me, after 6 months of silence. And you know what? That was only the beginning of the story. If you've ever been the child in a family that worships appearances, status, and perfection, then you'll understand how I felt. Like a wrong note in a perfectly orchestrated symphony. Since I was little, my mother, Madeline, painted a clear picture for my life. Graduate from a prestigious school, marry a successful man, and host a lavish wedding filled with the right kind of people. But I did the opposite of everything she dreamed of, and what finally pushed her to cut off all contact was my backyard wedding. When I decided to marry Bernice, I didn't expect a blessing from my mother. I had already braced myself for her look of disappointment. Bernice wasn't the type of man my mother would ever accept. He's a freelance artist, lives minimally, owns no luxury car or fat bank account. But he has a warm heart, a thoughtful soul, and most of all, he believes in me and cherishes me more than anyone ever has. When we started talking about the wedding, I knew deep down I didn't want anything extravagant. I didn't need a dress worth thousands of dollars. I just wanted a cozy space, something intimate. A place where the people who truly loved me could smile, raise a glass, and dance with us. And there was no better place than the small backyard of the house Bernice and I were renting. It might sound simple, but that decision felt like a bold act of rebellion against everything my family stood for. I remember that night vividly, when I called my mom to tell her. Her voice was ice cold. Not angry, not yelling, just, "If you're going to do something that disgraceful, don't expect me to be there." I don't know what hurt more, the cold rejection or the feeling that I was once again the disappointing child. Then came my sister, Amalinda. Her wedding had been straight out of a fairy tale, a designer dress from France, a gold-trimmed cathedral, a guest list filled with the elite. She called me just to say, "You're making a joke out of our entire family, Adelaide." I hung up heart heavy. But then I looked over at Bernice. He was carefully wrapping string lights around the tree trunks in our backyard, and I knew I had no regrets. I was choosing love, not spectacle. Thankfully, I wasn't alone. Amity, my best friend from college, the one who'd seen me through every heartbreak, showed up early that morning to help set up chairs, arrange flowers, and hang decorations. She's always been the one cheering me on to live authentically, no matter how uncomfortable it made others. That afternoon, the sunlight filtered through the leaves in soft golden streaks. I wore a simple white dress I got on clearance. Not designer, but it made me feel beautiful and radiant. Bernice wore a white shirt and earth-toned khakis, smiling like we were standing in the middle of a flower-filled palace. About 30 people came, close friends, kind neighbors, a few former co-workers. Not the upper crust my mother had hoped for, but their eyes sparkled with joy, their hearts open and real. Amity filmed the whole thing on her old phone. She said, "I want to capture every second so that one day when you doubt yourself, you'll remember how this love began." I laughed at the time, not knowing that very video would later change everything. The ceremony was filled with soft guitar music, heartfelt vows, and glistening tears. No officiant, no elaborate rituals, just love, faith, and long, tight hugs. We danced under string lights, ate a cake, Amity baked herself, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. After the wedding, Amity uploaded a short clip online, just under 2 minutes, showing Bernice and me exchanging rings beneath the dusky sky, surrounded by flowers, candles, and cheering friends. No one expected it, but within days the video went viral. Hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of comments, most of them deeply moved. People were calling it the wedding of the heart, proof that true love doesn't need an expensive dress. Then something unbelievable happened. A TV station reached out for an interview. They wanted to share our story. I hesitated, but Bernice said simply, "Sometimes the simplest things are exactly what the world is longing for." That night, I got a call from my mom, after 6 months of absolute silence. Her voice trembled. "Adelaide, I saw the video. I didn't know you could be that happy." I didn't say anything. Inside, I felt both overwhelmed and painfully raw. But deep down, I understood. What changed my mother's heart wasn't the TV segment or the millions of views, but the undeniable truth that she had finally seen her daughter truly happy. They may look down on you for not living like them, but one day, it'll be your difference that makes the world stop and turn to look. The phone call from my mother made my heart stop. 6 months of silence, no messages, no check-ins, and now, after the wedding video went viral, she was the one calling me. There was something unfamiliar in her voice, shaky, emotional. I didn't know how to respond. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Hi, Mom." There was a short pause before she spoke. "Adelaide, I saw the video. You looked beautiful. I never imagined you could be that happy." I bit my lip. All those years of trying to be seen to be enough. All those times I was the shadow behind my sister. The moments my mother looked at me with disappointment. They came flooding back. I didn't cry. I didn't blame. I just said, "I always wanted you to see me like that." On the other end, she stayed silent for a long moment, then softly said, "I was wrong, Adelaide. I was so stubborn. I thought if you didn't marry someone with status, if the wedding wasn't lavish, you'd suffer. I never stopped to think. Maybe all you needed was someone who truly loved you." I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. Some things we long for all our lives, and when they finally come, we don't know what to do with them. She hesitated, then asked, "Bernice, is he good to you?" I smiled. "Better than anyone's ever been, Mom." A light sigh came from her end. "I know I've missed so much, but I want to make it right. If it's okay, I'd like to meet you both." I could hardly believe my ears. The woman who once forbade me from even mentioning Bernice, who swore she'd never attend a backyard wedding like some ordinary folk, was now asking to meet. A few days later, my mom came to visit. Bernice stood beside me, his hand gripping mine as the door opened. My mother looked the same silk dress heels, that refined expression, but something was different. Her gaze was softer this time. She looked at me for a long moment, then turned to Bernice. She didn't speak, just gave him a small nod. We sat in the living room, where a few strands of wedding lights still hung. At first the air was awkward, heavy with unspoken words. And then something no one expected happened. My mom began to cry. "Adelaide, do you know I cried all night after watching that video? When you exchanged rings, when everyone smiled, when you looked at Bernice with those glowing eyes. I realized for the first time you were truly living your truth." I looked at her, the woman I once tried so hard to become, now sitting before me, head lowered like a child asking for forgiveness. I walked over and hugged her. "I never hated you, Mom. I just wished you could have understood me a little sooner." She nodded in my arms. "I'll try, sweetheart. I want to start over." From that day on, everything changed. Mom started calling, inviting Bernice and me over for dinner. At first I was nervous, afraid the dinners would be filled with judgmental glances and loaded questions. But no, she didn't ask about Bernice's income. She didn't say, "You should have." Instead, she started asking the small, genuine things she never had before. "What kind of tea do you like? What did Bernice paint this week? It's raining today. Are you two staying warm?" One time I walked into the kitchen and saw her rewatching the wedding video. She didn't know I was there. She smiled as the clip of me dancing lit up the screen. I cried. As for Bernice, he remained calm as always. He held no grudges toward my mom, even though she once rejected him. He simply said, "As long as she truly loves you, nothing else matters." The most unexpected reaction came from my sister Amelinda. She once told me I brought shame to the family, but after witnessing Mom's transformation, she began to question her own choices. One night she texted me, "Adelaide, maybe you were right. You're braver than I thought." I didn't reply immediately. I just sent her a short video clip of Bernice and me sitting under string lights singing a love song off-key and laughing. My love story, born from a backyard wedding that didn't meet anyone's standards, has now made people rethink what perfection really means. My mother is no longer the harsh woman who only believed in appearances. She's a mother learning how to love her daughter again, not by standards but by heart. And me, I no longer need to be someone else to feel accepted. Just living true to my love like that day under golden lights with Bernice's smile is more than enough. The change in my mother didn't just affect me, it began to crack something inside Amelinda as well. My sister had always been the star of the family, the daughter who followed the exact roadmap our mother laid out. Top grades, a prestigious degree, marrying a successful man, a 5-star hotel wedding with a guest list full of powerful names. In my mother's eyes, she was the greatest pride. And me, I was the stubborn one always causing a mess. So when my mother started talking about me in a different tone when she began visiting my home every week, when she texted to check on me instead of Amelinda, it started to bother her. And then, the day everything broke wide open finally arrived. It was a cool autumn evening and the whole family had been invited to my house for dinner. Bernice had prepared a light vegetarian meal paired with wine and garden-fresh tarts. My mom came dressed simply, for the first time no flashy jewelry. Everyone sat around the table laughing and chatting. My mother even shared a story about how as a child, I used to throw a blanket over my head and pretend I was in a wedding play. Amelinda didn't laugh. She took a sip of wine, then said with a faintly sarcastic tone, "It's surprising. Mom now thinks a backyard wedding is something to be proud of." The air turned still. My mom looked up and replied gently, "I'm not proud of the wedding location. I'm proud because Adelaide is happy, something I didn't understand before." Amelinda gave a dry laugh. "So everything I've done until now was wrong." I was about to speak, but my mother cut in. "No one's wrong. Everyone has their own path. But if you live forever in a shell of what's proper while feeling empty inside, is it worth it?" For the first time, I saw my sister's eyes tremble. That night she messaged me, "Adelaide, have you ever thought everything I've done was just to be loved by Mom? Just like you now." I stared at the screen, my heart tightening. I didn't know whether to be angry, empathetic, or pity her. But I understood beneath the mask of perfection, Amelinda had always lived for others' approval, even for our mother's love. I replied, "You can be anyone, but you don't need to be the ideal image Mom created. She's learning how to love her children again as who they truly are." She didn't text back. In the days that followed, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. Amelinda started posting more family pictures on social media, lavish dinners, new designer bags. But anyone observant could tell her smile looked more strained than before. Her husband Elliot, a successful businessman, was no longer featured much in the photos. Her son Noel only appeared when it was time to stage the perfect family. Then one afternoon I got an unexpected call from Elliot. "Adelaide, I'm sorry to call like this, but could you come see your sister Amelinda? She's not okay." I rushed over to their upscale apartment. Elliot greeted me with tired eyes and pointed to the bedroom. "She's locked herself in since this morning. All I hear is crying. I don't know what to do anymore." I knocked on the door. "Sis, it's me, Adelaide." No response. I sat down, leaning my back against the door, and spoke softly. "I'm not here to blame you. I just want you to know I've always loved you. Even when you look down on me, I still want you to know. You don't have to be strong, you don't have to be perfect. I just want you to be yourself." After a long pause, I heard the lock click. The door opened, and there stood Amelinda, pale-faced eyes red and puffy hair disheveled. She pulled me into a tight hug and sobbed like she had never cried before. "Adelaide, I'm so tired. I've lived for this idea of doing things right for so many years, but I don't even know who I am anymore." I gently patted her back and whispered, "It's okay. It's not too late to start over." From that day on, our relationship began to shift. Amelinda was still a perfectionist, but no longer rigid. She began allowing herself to make mistakes to try new things. One time, she and Noelle came over to my house. Bernice painted a portrait of the two of them beneath the orange tree. Amelinda stared at the painting for a long time, then whispered, "It's been a long time since I felt like I really exist." I smiled, because sometimes jealousy is just an unheard cry, and judgment is just a way of saying, "Look at me, I'm lost too." Life after the wedding between Bernice and me wasn't marked by firecrackers or flower arches, no media coverage or family announcements in the newspaper. We didn't send out fancy invitations, didn't talk about dowries, didn't choose a wedding center with crystal chandeliers. It was just a peaceful afternoon under the grape arbor in our backyard, where my mother, my sister Elliot, Noel, and a few close friends quietly witnessed two women placing their hands on one another's and promising to treat this love with kindness. Bernice looked at me, her eyes holding no need for elaborate vows. We had gone through enough pain to know that lasting connection doesn't come from ceremony or admiration. It comes from remembering to make coffee for each other in the morning, pulling the blanket up when the other falls asleep, or knowing the other is sad even when they say nothing. At first, I thought marriage would mean our love would have to work harder. But strangely, it all felt lighter. I no longer felt like I had to explain to the world why I loved an older woman with dark skin, curly hair, who didn't fit the mold of traditional beauty. I remember the first time I brought Bernice to meet my old college friends. One friend pulled me aside and asked quietly, "Are you really in love, or just rebelling against life?" I looked at them and smiled. Love is love. It's not rebellion, and it's not a statement. It's just that I finally found someone who makes me feel like I can be myself. That friend didn't say anything else. After the wedding, Bernice and I opened a small bakery connected to our backyard garden, the one with the orange tree Amelinda loves, and the persimmon tree Noelle always climbs. Each week, we baked small batches of homemade pastries and sold them on an old wooden table near the gate. Neighbors would stop by, and sometimes when they saw us for the first time, they'd ask hesitantly, "Are you sisters?" We'd smile and answer gently, "No, we're married." Some nodded in silence. Some widened their eyes in surprise. But gradually, people got used to it. They came back a second time, a third. And one day, an elderly woman said, "Your pastries bring peace to my heart, maybe because they're made with real love." My relationship with my mother after her awakening wasn't always perfect. Sometimes she would still slip and ask, "Have you thought about having kids? If you keep living like this, what if you end up lonely?" I didn't get angry. I just held her hand and said, "Mom, I'm not afraid of being lonely, because every day I live true to myself. I have real love. But if I lived to meet others' expectations and felt empty inside, that's what real loneliness is." She looked at me with slightly misty eyes and didn't say anything more. Amelinda surprised me even more. One afternoon, she brought Noelle over to visit and left a basket of bread at my doorstep. Inside was a handwritten note. "These are made from Mom's old recipe. I'm learning to bake again. Just like I'm learning how to be myself again. Thank you for not giving up on me." I held the basket, tears streaming down my face. Maybe sincere love doesn't just save a relationship. It can also save a soul that's lost its way. One chilly winter afternoon, Bernice and I sat on the porch drinking cinnamon tea, my hand nestled in hers. She looked at me and asked in a low voice, "Do you ever regret choosing this path?" I looked at her, then at the orange trees bearing fruit, the twinkling lights in the house. Where Noelle was drawing, my sister was reading, my mom was knitting, and I said, "No, I just wish I had met you sooner." Bernice smiled. But if you had met me sooner, you might not have had the courage to choose me. I nodded. True, maybe I had to go through the whole circle: mistakes, pain, rejection, to return to myself. And only then could I love you with a heart that no longer fears. Real love isn't the end of a journey. It's the beginning of a new life. One with no stage, no judgment, just two people choosing to walk together. Not to be perfect, but to learn, yield, and care day by day. I did not think my story with Bernice would spread this far. At first, it was just a third-year journalism student who came to the bakery to write a small blog titled, "I Met Two Women Who Bake and Relearned How to Believe in Love." She wrote about Bernice's gentleness when offering the last piece of cake to a customer, about my smile when wiping flour off my hands onto Bernice's apron, and that here people love each other without needing to win or prove who is right. Just kindness is enough. The article went viral. Then major online newspapers started reaching out. Some sent emails requesting interviews. Some asked, "Are you willing to share your love journey? We believe this story can inspire others." I hesitated. I was not used to being in the spotlight, nor did I ever think a private story could become a collective voice. But then Bernice said, "I have walked through the darkness alone long enough. If my story can be a light for someone who is scared, I should speak up." And I told it, not to be praised, nor to prove I am a symbol. I just shared, with all my honesty and scars. The media called me a brave woman. Some headlines read, "The girl who rejected norms to follow her heart." Some were thoughtful, others sensational. But I understood everyone sees life through different lenses. I was not angry. However, what surprised me was not the number of shares. It was the letters, hundreds of them, from people I had never met. A 19-year-old girl wrote, "Sis, I also love someone of the same gender. I used to think I was a freak, but reading your story, I cried. I realized love is not something to hide. I am learning to live honestly." A 57-year-old father sent a letter. "I didn't understand my son before, but after reading your story, I sat down and opened my heart, and for the first time, my son hugged me with tears." A single mother messaged, "Thank you for not sugarcoating. You showed me women can be happy without fitting molds. I am starting to believe I deserve that too." Bernice and I read every word with tears. We never expected what once made us outcasts would become a bridge for lost people to find themselves. Of course, not everyone agreed. Some harsh comments appeared. "This is immoral propaganda, a bad example for youth, a fake love story to get views." I did not argue. I understood their words were echoes of fear, not truth. And I was once afraid like them. I just walked through it, so I forgave. Once at the supermarket, an older woman approached quietly. "I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I see how you treat your wife, gently, patiently. I wish my husband had treated me like that." I looked at her and nodded softly. Love is what everyone needs. The way we show it differs. She was silent, no rebuttal. At a small seminar on love and diversity, I was invited as the final guest speaker. Standing on stage, seeing faces quietly waiting, I said these words, my last words today. I don't have a romantic movie story. I have a journey, from fear to trust, from rejection to acceptance. I used to think to be loved, I must be beautiful, young, obedient, pleasing to everyone. But then I realized love doesn't require you to be perfect. It only asks you to be yourself. I love a dark-skinned woman older than me with no wealth, but beside her I feel the most complete. If anyone listening is hiding feelings, living to meet others' expectations, I just want you to know, you are not wrong. You are not abnormal. You are simply loving, and that is the bravest thing you have ever done. The room applauded. Some cried. Some nodded silently. I wanted nothing more. That day when I returned home, I saw Noel sitting and drawing. The boy ran to me and gave me a drawing. It showed Bernice and me sitting under the grapevine, holding hands with golden sunlight above, and scribbled words, "The House of Love." I hugged Noel, and I understood, no matter how much the world changes, As long as a child knows how to name love correctly, we have hope.